Alright, it's been a long time coming now, but I think I can finally give a decent review about the new Superman. Now, there's a lot of talk going on about it right now because it is very, very split down the middle because a lot of people are saying if you like it, it's bad. If you don't like it, it's bad. And anything you say about it is potentially horrible. So, fuck that. I'm gonna say what's on my mind because I can. I think that this movie was actually really decent. There are a few things that I do have a little bit of problems with, but overall, I think the characters themselves were portrayed off a lot better as to what people were saying about it before it came out. Now, the big thing, Superman himself, I think the casting was done very, very well. And I think he portrays Superman actually very decently here. I'm gonna go into a little bit of spoilers, so just keep that in mind. So, as we all know, Superman is a very trustworthy person. He loves helping people. He's pretty much the ideal Boy Scout in the superhero world. And I think that the man who did play Superman, David, is a very solid choice. They say in the movie how when they're getting into the nitty-gritty of his own personality that Lois Lane says, you are very trusting. You only see the good in people. You don't see the bad. You just see everything through a lens where everything is nice. You don't want to see the bad parts, which is a good thing. The way I've always seen Superman is he's very, very much the opposite of what Batman is. He's happy. He focuses only on the good because that's how he was raised from his Earth family, and overall he just wants to do the right thing, which is good. I think that this moves the character into a better limelight than what we've seen in the past. I'm not saying that he's the best Superman, but I think it's a good way to establish his character moving forward, because I'm pretty sure they're going to set this up for this Superman to be a continuing part of the DC universe, which has been in a weird state for a while, so I think he can play a very, very crucial role here. The next thing I want to talk about is, of course, the villains, which is Lex Luthor and Ultraman. Ultraman, phenomenal. I think him and Lex Luthor were such a good team up. It really puts Superman in a position to where he's fighting a super smart enemy and a super strong enemy, and it's honestly amazing. I think it was really, really well done. I think putting those two together just already establishes such a strong combination to what potential there is to Lex Luthor in the future and maybe Ultraman. I think this duo is a very, very productive antagonist to Superman right now because it's still in the early stages of him being Superman. So he's still charismatic, he wants to do good, but when he's facing enemies like Lex Luthor and Ultraman, who are two very, very strong powerhouses, it kind of puts in the dynamic of where he should focus everything, how he's going to defeat these enemies, how he's going to do what he needs to do, which is great. Now, I will say, Lex Luthor in the beginning of this movie was very, very villain-like. Like, there's a perfect balance of him. He even plays Russian roulette with a guy that Superman barely even met and just shoots him, blows his brains out right on the scene, which is fucking insane and very villain-like. I loved it, but they didn't really keep that. After that, he kind of just downgrades a little bit to where he's not as villain as he should be, which I think kind of ruined the script a little bit. I think the man who does play Lex Luthor is a very, very solid pick. I just think that his talents were wasted on what the script had in mind for him. But overall, I think he was a very, very good Lex Luthor. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is Krypto. Now, there's been a little controversy about this because there was a scene that James Gunn took out where Ultraman hit Krypto and was received negatively by people. Still don't know why they did that, but they kind of redeemed themselves with the Lex Luthor scene, so it's not all that bad. But Krypto in this movie is what you'd expect. He's kind of like a sidekick to Superman, but at the core, he's a dog. He loves to play. He's really fun. Like, even like when interacting with some of the characters, he treats things like toys. He wants to play. It's fun. I like Krypto. I think Krypto is a really fun addition to this universe. And it's nice to see how they kind of play with the dynamics of what the core of these characters are supposed to be. Lex Luthor, the villain, Superman, the Boy Scout that fights for good, and Krypto, who's just a dog. So it's funny. I think that's great. There were a lot of things happening in this movie. I think there's stuff that could have been changed, like the Justice Gang. They did very, very well. I think all of them were very great. It had Hawkgirl, Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, and Mr. Terrific. Now, what I kind of liked about this was that they gave a bit more screen time and character development to these characters that you haven't really seen, like Mr. Terrific and Guy Gardner. A lot of times you kind of see a bit more of Hawkgirl when it came to past DC stuff. I'm not talking about movie-wise, but I mean like in the cartoons, you kind of get to see her character. So I kind of like how they kind of gave that dynamic where you can see some of these other characters that you don't hear about as much as you would as the more commonly known ones, which I think was good. But I think the downside for this was that obviously they are side characters in this. They don't have as much screen time as Superman would or Lois Lane. So they kind of take a little bit of a backseat, but just a little bit enough to kind of see that they're good. They have significance, but there's not as much meat and bones to this Justice Gang as what you would want it to be. So I kind of feel like that was a bit lacking. Now, the biggest thing I want to get into is the story of this movie. So it's going to be pretty spoiler heavy, just letting you know that. But Superman gets his ass kicked a lot. He's basically Vegeta in this universe. He's always getting beat. He always needs someone to come save his ass. Now, I know it's the early Superman, so I would assume that he's not the best when it comes to fighting, but he's fucking Superman. He should be able to knock everything out in one punch. Like, it's almost ridiculous to think that every time he gets into a fight, he's getting his ass clapped like no tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if an ant came up and touched him on the shoulder and he'd get in the fucking defeated pose just for whatever goddamn reason. It's funny as hell. So that was a little bit weird, but the fight scenes themselves were amazing. I mean, there was a lot of CGI, of course, but there was a lot of moving angles. The fights were intense. There was a lot happening. I think the fight scenes were actually done pretty decently. But moving on to the story, I think there was a lot more emotion to this. I think it's a good thing. I think a lot of movies like in the superhero genre nowadays have been kind of reduced to slapstick humor, which it's stupid. I don't know why they do this. I know they're trying to lighten the mood, but there's a time and a place for everything. And I think what would have really helped this movie is that they kept it with the emotional train. They would just let everything take its course, make it feel a bit more natural, and just keep it more realistic. And there were some times in this movie where it did have that, like where he hears his father talking about how he needs to make his own life. He's not supposed to tell him how to live. He's supposed to give him the tools to create his own future. I think it's very, very nice. It's very emotional, and it's a very, very strong point that kind of brings a lot of people home to what Superman is. He needs to make his own future if he wants to be the savior or not that, and he makes these choices very, very good. But there were just some scenes that were washed down a bit with the comedy. I think it just needed to not be there in some cases. There was just a lot of stuff that needed to be said that got ruined, but I won't talk about that much because there were some scenes that were decent. Overall, though, I think this movie was good. It had a lot better stuff than what we've recently seen in a bunch of superhero movies, and I think if they keep this trend of the DC universe going forward, where it's a bit more emotional and serious and not as much comedy, and if they keep this dynamic with the story building in the world, and hopefully they'll make the villains like Lex Luthor a bit more menacing in the future now that he's faced defeat. So there's potential there. But yeah, it was a good movie. I think a lot of people will like it. I don't think you should look too much into what people say about it, like what the crowd has to say. I think if you like it, you should just go watch it because it's a movie. It's fiction at the end of the day. You can like whatever the hell you want. So yeah, it was good. I liked it. And let me know what y'all think about this because I'm curious to see what y'all think. But yeah, on that though, it's pretty much it. That's all I want to talk about. And thanks for watching. Hope y'all enjoyed. And I'll talk to you later. See ya.